Are you as ready as you're gonna get?
Yep.
We need a microphone.
No, they don't work.
They don't work.
It's just as well. I apologize for being late this morning. I was just moving slow. Glad I'm able to move. Call the meeting to order. Shall we review leaders in prayer?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and every day that you give us. Help us to try to make a just decision on items before the court. We ask that you be with all of our people today as the weather is changing. Be with our troops for what they do. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No ladies.
Army Green.
Next item on the agenda this morning is citizens to be heard. I don't know that
None have been
none
turned in.
have turned in, so we have none to be heard. Item 6, acknowledge the acceptance of a $500 donation from the Pedro Maria Men's Club organization to the Sheriff's Department to be used at the discretion of the Sheriff, authored by Sheriff Dwayne Villanueva.
Good morning, Commissioners Court. I just was going to bring to your attention that we got a $500 donation from the Pedro Maria's Men's Club organization, and just need to bring to y'all's attention for approval.
Is there anybody here from the Pedro Maria Men's Club? Well, we will get word to them that we appreciate this very much. I assume you do.
Yes, sir.
And I know the rest of us do. So, item 7, Sheriff Dwayne Villanueva disapprove the purchase of a Caterpillar Model D40 diesel generator set to be used at the new jail for emergency power for the new radio tower. These items are in the budget already and will not require a budget amendment. This set includes the generator, emergency power switches, auxiliary fuel tank, and installation charges for a total cost of $57,353, authored by Sheriff Dwayne Villanueva. Sheriff.
This estimate that we got was from Holt. That's the company that sold us the one that's there at this time, and the generator that we have here that we're using now is a 15 kW. So we need a larger one, which would be a 40, due to a bigger facility that we are going to have now.
Dwayne, this one's gonna run the tower as well as the jail?
The jail, yeah, I control.
And the tower.
Yes.
The jail has a separate generator to actually run the emergency
other side.
inside. This will run part of the jail and then part of the radio system itself. Now that
So
for
that
the
was
whole
the
county.
generator at the tower, correct?
No.
This generator will be at the tower, the other one's behind the building.
On the entrance, on the entrance side of the Sally Port. That's where the other generator's at. It's there right now.
Okay, let me see if I understand it. There is a generator with the jail, that was bid with the jail.
Yeah.
And so for the tower auxiliary supply, we had talked about possibly using this 15 kW generator here, since it wasn't that old, but they said it wasn't big enough, so the sheriff's department has put this money in their budget to buy a generator for the tower, separate, but we can't use that. Is that correct?
And this was not part of the tower contract, the packaging with the tower. This is separate and aside from that.
Correct.
I don't have any issue with buying a generator. I know you need it. But I do believe this is past that $50-something thousand threshold. It needs to be bid.
If you'll pay attention to your packet that we gave you there, the bid, it specifically says from OCAD that it went through the buy board. The buy board does the bidding for you for the state. It's a state contract. And what they do is they bid the prices out, and the buy board takes the lowest and the best price for a government entity. And we made certain when we put out those specs that it was done through the buy board.
Okay.
And so that's why we went with whole cap, because that's the way it's contracted.
I'm the new person on the block. However, my approach would be the buy board should be a backup. You should still offer it for bids, see what you get. Might get something cheaper. And if not, you always have the buy board to fall back on.
The buy board was put in place by the state of Texas probably in 2000 when I went to work for them back then. And what they do, Mr. Reynolds, is they bid out all automobiles, generators, large ticket items that the government would normally buy. They do this to save government entities the
Time and effort.
labor, time, and effort to do it. And so they do the work for you at a free charge. You shouldn't say free because the state tax money pays for that, but that's what the purpose of it is for. That's why when we buy sheriff's department vehicles, we don't bid them locally because they go through the buy board. They do the bids.
Well, I know you get a really good price on them.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
aware of that. Pete, didn't you tell me something about gas-powered generators?
We have a gas power generator for the jail.
Natural gas.
Natural
Natural
gas.
gas.
Intex.
And we made that decision. They had what they call value engineering. They asked us, do you want to save so much money, do this and so much? And we could have saved money on that generator by getting a diesel generator. But if we did that, we have to get a fuel tank and we have to change that fuel or upgrade
Stabilize it.
that fuel, stabilize it every year. And I said, if there's a power outage, you'd have a hard time getting diesel delivered anyway if you needed it, so we left it with natural gas. So we did have that choice.
And during the jail construction, they realized that the utilities at the new jail are on the west side. So it would have cost an enormous amount of money to trench a line all the way over to the opposite side of the property to run an Intex line. So that's why the architect and Pete and them at the time chose to do this either as a diesel generator or propane. And we looked at propane versus diesel, and this was a better buy to go the diesel route. The reason we're asking for an auxiliary fuel tank because the generator is supplied with a 3-day tank. If you have a hurricane or you have a major event and power's out, you have no way to bring diesel in there and pump it in there. So Hope agreed under that buy board bid to put a 500-gallon tank there, and the only thing it requires is stabilization once a year. And this way the generator would have a better capacity to running that. That tower will run the whole county, the whole emergency system off that generator.
Educate me a little bit about how you keep the equipment up and running. Do y'all run it so many hours a month, or how do you?
As
how do
far
you
as
make
the
sure they're
generator,
functional?
we have it set where it kicks off automatically, the one here, every Saturdays from 6:30 to 7. And then once a month, we have to do a manual Startup, yes, sir.
And that's required through the jail commission rules also, so you know, the jail commission, when they come and inspect you, they require that, and they check those logs, and make sure it's done properly.
On that basis, I move we go ahead and accept the thing so they can get it fixed.
I'll second this.
Is there any further discussion from the court? We'll vote on it. All in favor of the motion to approve, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. All voted for.
Thank y'all very much.
Item 8 on the agenda, acknowledgement of a donation to Karnes County EMS from the Santa Maria Men's Club in the amount of $500. This donation was received with no specific instructions other than to be placed into an EMS account only, EMS only account, and to be spent at the discretion of the EMS administrator, authored by Dennis Kemp.
Good morning, Commissioners and Judge. Dennis unfortunately couldn't be here today at a fire engagement he needed to be at, but I just want to bring to y'all's attention as well. Beginning of this week, we received a donation from Panama Men's Club in the amount of $500. So again, just wanted to bring it to y'all to acknowledge the receipt of it. I actually spoke to one of the members this morning at breakfast, Randy Pavelic from Panama, and I expressed our thanks not only from EMS but from the county for their donations. But we again wanted to bring it to your attention for that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Item 9 on the agenda, discuss, approve, disapprove election services contracts and election equipment lease contracts with the various political subdivisions located within Karnes County, and authorize county sheriff to sign on behalf of Karnes County, authored by Carol OPL.
Okay, I have been contacted, of course, by several entities to do elections during the May election time, which is not a county election, so none of them will be joint elections. I gave you copies or samples of each type of contract that I've kind of got out there, but as they come in, I'd just like to do an overall approval so that we can get, I can just bring them to the judge and he can get them signed when they come in. Because I send them to the entities and have them sign them first, just so you know. I've been contacted by the city of Runge and Runge ISD, both of them just want equipment. The city of Kennedy ISD want us to run their complete election. I will be their early voting clerk, etc., and we will do early voting on both of those in Kennedy City Hall, and election day voting in Kennedy City Hall on both of those elections. So we'll combine some ballots if we can, make it easier for our voters. And we haven't decided, we may actually have voting stations on that. But anyway, and just know that on these contracts, the way that they work, number one, I'm obligated to contract because I am an elections administrator. Your county clerk is not necessarily obligated to contract, but I am. Number two, I wanted you to know that it's all pass-through costs. So we pay the cost, and then the entities pay us back, and we also put a 10%, which is the maximum that we can put administrative fee on top of the cost. And then the other entities that have contacted me are Pettis ISD, and they want us to do just their Karnes County voters. So they're going to do their own early voting. They want election day voting out at the Choate Baptist Church cafeteria, which is what we use for the county elections. Falls City ISD, they're asking us to do the election day voting only. They usually take care of the early voting, but we would be taking care of the election day voting, and they would be renting equipment, leasing equipment from us for their early voting. And then the last one is the Evergreen Underground Water Conservation District. And if they do have to have an election, they would like us to take care of the whole election for them, but for Karnes County only. They cover evidently 4 different counties. The only other 2 entities that I know of are Karnes City and Karnes City ISD, and neither of them have elections this year. So as far as I know, that'll be all of them. But as they come in, I'd just like permission for the judge to sign them on behalf of the county.
And you have enough equipment and staff to handle everything?
Yes.
What exactly do you need us to do?
Just give you permission to sign the contracts as they come in.
So does this form contain, item 1 through 14, does this contain everything that we need for all entities in the county?
No, I gave you several samples. There wasn't just one sample. There were several samples. That one, let me just look, is just election equipment. So those that are just leasing election equipment from us, that's the contract they get. The other entities get a contract that specifically states, you know, whether we're doing early voting or we're not doing early voting for them. All of those things are in the contract. And these are the same contracts that we used last year, or that you had already approved, so nothing's been changed.
Is there a limitation of liability where the county won't get hung out or anything by anything that should go wrong in any of this?
Yeah, we put that into the contract, as well as the fact that the Secretary of State states that as well.
Well, I would recommend that we accept these contracts subject to the review of our county attorney.
Like I said, he's already reviewed them.
And I move that we accept these contracts presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve these. Is Herb here this morning? Herb, have you reviewed it and put your seal of approval on it? As you recommend that we do this?
Yes, sir, let me look at the contracts.
I'll bring each one to you before I bring them to him.
Well, you haven't looked at them yet.
They're the same ones that he approved last year, so I didn't have him re-review them.
He's going to approve it this year. So after you approve it, bring it to me.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Now, we've got to wait till we approve it.
Well, y'all made a vote, and
We made a vote.
y'all have a motion on the floor,
Okay, my motion was that we approve these contracts
subject to the approval by him, and then a second.
Any further discussion, board members? All right, that being so, all in favor of the motion to approve, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign, all voting for.
Thank you.
Discuss the wheeled items on the agenda, discuss approval resolution to accept ACOG mutual aid agreement authored by Susanna Kaliba.
Good morning. The Regional Mutual Aid agreement through our COG is an agreement proposed so that we can share resources among the members of our region.
You want me to comment?
Sure.
Okay, this is a mutual aid agreement in case of an emergency that you get help from another county, joining county, or from San Antonio, or from wherever we need from, if we have need for outside help. We agree to help them, they agree to help us. This is drafted by ACOG, which I have been attending the ACOG meetings, and we agreed to this verbiage in here has been reviewed by the lawyer, so forth. In case there's a large emergency in an area, we will help them and they will help us. It has statements in here about that you'll put them up in housing after 12 hours and things like that. And you'll provide meals and so forth for them, which is normal courtesy. And there are certain things in here that says to make exceptions to those rules, etc. So it's a whole lot of stuff covered in here, but it has been reviewed by ACOG's lawyer, and we approved it up there for them, and I don't see any reason if we want help or if we want to help someone else that we shouldn't approve it. I can't tell you about the legalities of it, but the lawyers have approved it. They have checked it out and said this is what we should do. So therefore, I would make a motion that we accept this mutual aid agreement.
Has Herb looked at it?
He's received it. Mr. Hancock, have you had a chance to review the
I don't
agreement?
think I've looked at it, Judge. Could I look at it? I'll be glad to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
In addition.
I feel like you should.
Which would Pete make his motion contingent on his approval?
Make that motion to include that, subject to the approval of our county attorney.
Good.
I'll second that motion.
Any other discussion of the motion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All opposed, false. Shelby, item 11 is yours, it looks like. Discuss, consider, act allowing TCEQ to occupy office space in Karnes County. TCEQ would like to have someone in Karnes County assigned 2 to 3 days a week to answer and investigate complaints. They have been attempting to secure office space with other government agency, but have been unsuccessful. So I think about you, Shelby, you want.
All right, on February 5th, I received an email from TCEQ's representative, Joel Anderson, and they're wanting to do is set up a satellite office here to attempt to answer a lot of local people's complaints. They've been receiving a lot of local, I guess, use complaints due to flaring and other issues in the county. Their wish is that they could set up a satellite office here. They've been trying to find a sister agency to set one up here to share what office space with, but there's nothing here. All they're wanting is a desk, at least one desk, and with an electrical outlet and maybe a cabinet that can be locked for equipment storage. And then if there's someplace they can use some counter space to calibrate equipment and maintenance. They'll have a person here that assign that the public can come into the office and express their concerns or complaints. Otherwise, they have to go to San Antonio or call. By the time they come down here, you know, it's just time has been wasted. So they want to be able to respond to people's needs as quick as they can. Yesterday in Austin, Pete and I were talking with the Railroad Commission, and we mentioned this to the Railroad Commission, and they also stated that they might be interested in maybe putting somebody here 2 to 3 days a week as well. So I think it's a good thing for the public. They have their own computers. They have a with air card and stuff in it. Just basically a place that they can receive the public and do some, you know, I guess office work as needed. I know we don't have any place yet, and I think it would be for the county attorney to set up an agreement with them, a memorandum of understanding of some sort before we do it. But I'd like the court to consider that we go ahead and allow some type of space contingent on the approval of the memorandum of understanding.
Well, in our meeting with Railroad Commission, Shelby told them that TCEQ had requested office space, and they said, well, it might be good for us to have office space down there too. And they may share the same office space on different days of the week. Because it wouldn't be equipment, they'd have their own laptop and stuff, what they'd work off of, so it wouldn't have to have equipment or anything, but I think we should consider it, and I don't think we have to prove it today. We have to plan for it, but we'd start looking for a space where they could be put and plan for it, and then get the agreements written up and accepted.
I always have concerns about bringing regulators in because sometimes they bring in more problems than they solve. However, my issue presently would be, I believe Luana told me that the judge had asked her to set up some sort of a plan of office space, who was assigned now and who might be assigned. So I would think that at the best we could do would be wait until that had come to fruition, so we would have nowhere to put them. I mean, I know there's plans for the Canal building, and I don't know exactly who or what's going to move there, but that would be the thing that I would want to take into consideration is that, you know, we really, that I see, don't have the office space this moment unless they go into Karnes Cafe, but at some point we may, but you know, maybe it should be part of a whole plan rather than a piecemeal, I guess is the best way of stating it. So.
Well, I'd like to at least get the dialogue started with the TCEQ, because, you know, everything runs slow. And this will just get us a step closer to getting this done. I mean, nothing says we have to do it today or tomorrow, but and I know we have to have office space, and I know we're looking at the Canal building. And we still need to assign the design for that building, and as well as who's going to be in what building. So I just want this I would like for the court to consider this.
I think it's a good idea. I think we should have TCEQ here. And the Railroad Commission, even if we split an office half and half like Pete said, that'd be something to consider.
They said they've got they're getting a lot of complaints from Karnes County, a lot to do with flaring, a lot to do with the saltwater wells. So they're doing a lot of investigation. There's a lot of issues that they're addressing.
I think we should start considering it.
Just for your attention, I know y'all are concerned about bringing them here. I know the times that we need them, we usually have to wait about 2 hours before when we call for them to get here. You know, just real
good to have them here.
Yes.
But they still wouldn't have a full presence.
When you need them, they probably wouldn't be here that day.
Right. But I'm just letting y'all know that usually when we call them, that's usually how long we have to wait before they make the location that we need them at.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? I would ask for Pete and Shelby to work together for the court and pursue this and report back to the court at our next regular meeting.
So you want to make a motion to consider, Judge?
Yeah, if that's what it takes. I think I can just say that and appoint somebody to do it,
You want to do it? Whichever.
but I want Pete and Shelby to work together.
Okay.
Report back when you're ready. Next meeting if you're ready for them, and if you're not, whenever you are ready.
That'll be fine.
Let us know to put it on the agenda when we
Thank
come
you.
back to the court.
Judge, certainly you would want Mr. Hancock to collaborate on that.
Oh, yes, I want him to examine anything we're going to agree to. Any other comments? We'll look forward to a future action in the court for that purpose. Item 12, discuss, approve, disapprove CR 277 bridge replacement project closeout, including accepted contractor's final payment affidavit indicating all subcontractor supplier bills are paid, accepting and executing contractor's certificate of construction completion, decreasing and confirming final contract amount of $66,985.73, setting a project acceptance date of February 27th, 2015, and beginning the one-year warranty period as of the project acceptance date, authored by David Underbrink.
All right, so today we're here to put the final touches on this bridge replacement. It was damaged, so we've replaced it and hired Liska Construction. So what we need is a couple of documents. One is the contractor's final payment affidavit, which you should have in front of you. It's basically an all bills paid sort of certification, and that's been notarized. Then there's a second document, a certificate of construction completion, and that finalizes the contract amount with deductions that are mentioned in the motion agenda item. And then there's a place there for the county to sign. We want you to authorize the judge to do that. Mike has seen the project. We inspected it while it was going on. It looks like they've done a pretty good job. So we'd recommend that you guys accept the project, and that would begin the warranty period as of today. Any questions?
I believe we have a 1-year warranty period.
Yes, sir. And then I passed out a schedule so you can see how this fits in with some of the other projects. It also shows the warranty period beginning today and then going through the end of February next year.
All the work's been done, been inspected?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And the final amount is $66,985.73, that's correct?
Yes, and he's already been paid that amount, and then you've reduced the contract by the remainder, so the balance is zero.
I'll make the motion to approve item number 12 as presented.
Second.
There's a motion made and seconded to accept the figures as presented in the certificate of construction completion. Any discussions from the court?
I have a question. Is the county going to pursue legal recourse against the company that damaged the bridge?
We've talked about it. I haven't got a lawyer to do that yet. That's a possibility. We looked at it one time and got some evidence together and had some questions, and I never did get answers to those. And we haven't hired a lawyer yet, but that's still in the process.
Question for whom?
Question about the authorization, who authorized the dumping, whether or not and how much culpability the county had in its authorization. That was my big question. We had some county employees that probably were involved in the authorizing of the dumping along the roadway, and we just never did get that issue settled.
We're talking about the bridge.
We're talking about the bridge on 277.
Oh.
The crane down. The crane down.
Oh, okay, I'm talking about a different project, yes. That's, I would talk about the concrete on the side of the
No,
road.
we're talking about the bridge.
Okay. Yes, that's in the process, the bridge, yes.
In the process.
You are pursuing collection.
Yes, but I'll have to hire some outside firm probably. I was trying to do it myself, but I think I'm gonna have to get somebody else. I'll talk to Jeff today and see what I need.
Whenever you get that phone, if you want to meet with me, I'm going to attend really, because I have some people that are willing to come forward and have some permits.
That's,
People, so just let me know when the meeting is, and I'll call them. They told me that they would come forward to do it. I told them the only way that we can prove something, if y'all come forth and they're willing to do something.
and that's what we need.
Okay,
in that process.
just let me know.
Yes, thank you, sir.
But y'all kind of bring me up to speed. I probably wasn't paying attention at the time, but what happened to the bridge on 277?
We had a crane that decided to take an alternate route because of the GPS system. There was a wooden bridge. Yeah, it went straight down. And that thing wouldn't hold the weight of the crane.
What was the crane company?
Oh, I think it was Ace, I think it Ace Crane or something like that. I'm working off memory. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll find out exactly who it was.
Yeah, Herb's got the information. I'll get it from her.
Okay, well, if he's got it, he'll get it for you.
Okay.
Herb, do you have the information about this incident?
Yes, I do.
Have you
I
looked at
have-
it? You gonna have somebody look at it?
I have a police report. It's a preliminary police report, and we just haven't followed up on it. I will get somebody involved in it. So
I would like to have a report the next meeting if we can.
we can do that, yes.
What was the total cost on the project we're paying? Is this the total cost or is this the final payment?
That would be the total cost of the project,
Okay.
and then the engineering services, I would think you'd want to put on there as well.
Judge, we talked to Ward Thomas about representing the county in the case of that, and I just haven't completed that process yet.
We will do so and get back with us.
And we'll have him here for the next meeting.
Good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the court? All right, we'll look forward to hearing from her at the next meeting about this.
We do have a motion
Well, the motion was what?
to pass to pay the.
As presented.
Pay the bill and close this out. All right, we're ready to pay, but to close out this contract and
Start the work today.
warranty date.
As Herb looked at it and put his
Yes.
seal of approval on it, y'all say yes, and I have a attorney. But
Not yet, but we'll look at it.
we can't do it today.
Can we, Jeff's here, can we look at it after we get adjourned?
Well, sure, but the court's not gonna hear it after we adjourn.
I think the project's been completed and
Pretty brief, they can probably just go over it.
Y'all could use my office if you want to go in there.
277. Yeah. We'll look at the signature. 277. I'm not sure. That's good.
Who's looked at it so far before today?
Just me.
Not
Well, your co-art is raising his hand. He hadn't looked at it.
I sent it to him.
Good, that's okay, Judge.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
What is okay?
The agreement.
Okay. Y'all have looked at it carefully.
The final
In this-
application, final application is for a $0 payment to the contractor. It includes an all bills paid affidavit, and it's in order with what you would expect for a final closed out document.
Did you recommend that we pay that?
Well, you're not paying anything, you just have to authorize it.
Well, we authorize.
Yes.
payment.
Yes. Payment's been made.
What does that do as far as the payment is concerned? If we authorize the payment, it's going to get paid.
Well, there's no payment due right now, Judge. It's a $0 final
balance, yeah.
balance. So all you're doing is authorizing the signature on that, which is the acceptance of the project, which completes the project and triggers the warranty obligations.
warranty starts today. Warranty starts today.
So Judge, what it actually does, from Visco Construction saying that they have received the payment and $0 is correct, that they want to start their warranty period today, but they accepted,
They want to, do we want them to? Yes, is what the question is.
Yes.
I think.
Question, answer is
Kind of
yes.
done today, but it's not much different from any other day. Any other comments or anything about it? What action do we need to take? Or just to vote on what motion exactly was made?
As item, as presented, item number 12 presented, approve it. And then it was made and seconded already, right?
Is that correct, Keith?
That's correct.
Is that what you want? All right. All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay. We're down
Number 13.
to 13. Item 13 on the agenda is discuss, approve, disapprove, authorizing the advertisement for bids for 2014-2015 seal coat, authored by David Underbring.
Yes, sir. This is something in Mike's budget for seal coating roads. Seal coat, chip seal, surface treatment's all the same thing. So we're looking at a project that will spend money that's in his budget. We're trying to push this into a bid phase because we feel that the cost for seal coating work will increase dramatically over the next few months as TxDOT starts to let go of some of their seal coat work for the state highways all over. So if we can get these bids in and collected before the state starts their process of taking bids, I think there's a good chance we can get really great pricing. So we'd like to consider going ahead and authorizing this for bids, and as soon as we're ready, we'll get that in the newspaper and get that process started. So that's what we're asking for, is
Court to
authorization
authorize
to do that. Yes, sir.
the advertisement for bids.
Right.
And that's all you need from us at this point?
That's enough. Yes.
Is this the 30 or so miles that we were talking about
Yes, sir.
previously?
Right.
And this is the tar and gravel application, correct?
Yes.
All right.
And most of it is 2 course.
2 course, okay.
Yes, sir.
What is most of it?
There's a few streets that are already asphalted that only need a single course.
Streets?
Yes.
Where?
Got the one in front of the yard over there, it's Gillette. 266, we were gonna do it, but then trucks tore it up, so we're gonna have to open it up and redo it. But there's like 2 of them, I think.
Yeah, there's just a couple streets that need just 1 course at this point.
The bids will be advertised for in the paper as always, and then
The
when they
usual
come in,
process.
we will open them and look.
The Karnes County-wide will have a public opening, just like we did for the last project. The last project hasn't been started because the weather hasn't been warm enough to get going. And as soon as the weather warms up, that's when everybody else is going to want to start the process as well.
I think the world of the local newspaper, I'm glad we have them, but should we not be advertising in a little bigger?
We had 8 bidders on the last project, and all 8 of them are aware of this project coming up, and they're very
We do
interested.
have
So
some cover.
there's a lot of interest in this, and this is a much bigger project than the first one.
I just wondered whether it would justify the cost to advertise in San Antonio or Victoria.
I'd tell you no, because we're calling everybody within earshot, anything within 100 miles of here, we're letting them know about it.
Do you have an anticipated cost for the project for?
Well, if we can get the great pricing, we're going to be in the $2.5 million range.
I think that was what was budgeted, if I remember.
Well, and it could go as high as $3 million depending upon the pricing, so we want to try and get it done as quick as we can.
I move we accept or approve the advertisement for bids for 14 and 15 seal coat programs so we can move on.
Any discussion from the court?
Can I ask a question? Are we having Naismith do this, or are we doing this as a county? Because it's my understanding that there was a $150,000 fee for Mr. Underbrink's fee for this seal coat service fee, and I wondered whether, you know, the county is doing it and advertising it, and we're analyzing the bids as a county, or if Mr. Underbrink's doing it as Naismith Engineering charging us $150,000, if he's doing it under his entity. So, you know, a $150,000 fee for his end of it, I'm just wondering, we can't do it at our own, as a county?
Well, first thing, we don't have the experience of anybody out there doing seal coat. And he's got the inspection going, he's got all the surveys going, the widths, the lengths. I mean, he's got everything sitting there. That's why when he comes out here and he does this, everything gets taken care of. It's a turnkey setup. We got no experience. If we went out there and told them to shoot 3,500, them guys would look at me like, what's that?
Didn't you just buy a new tar truck?
Oh yeah, but we have
We don't know how to
no
use
personnel, we don't have no chip spray, we don't have nothing.
What do we buy the truck for then?
What would we buy a truck for then?
For doing patches on it. You got edges, potholes, and we've got the old time spreader box that TxDOT had where you stand on the back of it and you open the lever up. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna use it the old time way until we get the chip spreader. And that should be in the next year's budget. Then we're ready to go. But till then, we have to go with what we got.
To respond to the question, last meeting we talked about that contract in particular, and y'all authorized that subject to review by the attorneys. And I've been working through Herb and Mr. Chapman to get that done, and I believe that that's ready for signature. But that contract is a turnkey contract. We pay for the advertising, we evaluate the bids, make a recommendation, we'll bring it back to the court when we get the pricing together, probably at the end of the month in March, and put that in front of you for award.
So you basically you are responsible for getting the
Yes,
stuff
sir.
in the paper and
That's right.
bringing the stuff in. But ultimately, the court has the option of either taking the recommendation or
That's
taking
correct.
one of the others or taking that.
We'll tell you what we think, and you all are free to do as you please.
Any other comments from the court? Jeff, are you in agreement with what's being said?
Everything he said, Mr. Henry said is accurate. He and I worked on the final language for the contracts that I was asked to look at, that y'all authorized in the last meeting, and I've got those with me today for your signature. The advertisement for bid is going to solicit pricing, and then when the final contracts, or when the decision is made to award a contract, at that point, if you'd like me to do so, I'll be at work with him to get the contract documents done. But right now, everything that he's represented to the court is accurate, and the previous actions taken by the court authorize what's happening now.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Joe.
Mr. Chapman, Naismith Engineering supplies you the contract. This is kind of, what I'm asking. Supplies you the contract, you look at it, see if it's in the county's best interest, mark it up to where it is, and turn it back to him. He takes it to his attorney. What's the exact process?
That is the exact process for these projects with Naismith. The county does not have a standard form contract for design services that we use. So I worked with his form contract. I added some provisions in there with respect to indemnity, insurance requirements, ownership of the design documents and work product, and a few other terms that are favorable to the county to make sure the county's interests are protected. I then returned them to him. He reviewed them and approved them, and I've got the final amended contracts here today for Judge Long's signature. And those were contracts that were approved in the last meeting.
So we don't have to take any action.
Correct. The action's already been taken. It was just a matter of finalizing the documents and getting them ready for execution, and we have that now.
You've got the contract in final form,
Yes.
and it's ready for approval by the court.
Well, it's already been approved by the court. The expenditure and the contract, all, it really is just ready for your signature, Judge.
All right. Any questions? Just vote. Yeah, all in favor of the motion on the court, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Approved by the court.
Thank you.
And by the way, Mike and David, I appreciate this schedule.
You bet.
And y'all will continue,
David?
y'all will continue
Every
to
meeting.
give these.
Every meeting.
Yes, sir.
That's what I was going for. Anything else we would have? We're on item 14. Yes. Item 14 on the agenda, discuss review action on status of Karnes County Jail project and possible action on payment to HMC.
On 14.
Okay, excuse me. Oh, wrong bit. Discuss with item 14, discuss review action on adjustments to pricing, amount, and structure for contract with Fisher Head Architects on when agenda has items
Sir?
well,
Yes, sir.
doesn't make any sense.
Remember this is what,
Do what?
I say remember what he said when he had the insurance, I said remember what they said.
This is this was drafted by you, wasn't it?
Yes.
So, tell us what this is.
All right, so
I understand.
Right, so we've got the design contract with Fisher Heck Architects for Phase 2 of the courthouse. We talked about that previously. It was authorized by the court. Since that authorization, Fisher Heck came back to me and wanted to modify the pricing and the pricing structure. Because of that modification, I thought it was prudent to bring it back to the commissioner's attention so that there would be no questions going forward as to what the court is paying for and what the county's paying for and what the court has authorized. And we've got Mr. Fisher here along with someone else from his office to speak to you. I've asked them to come here today to answer questions about their pricing and the changes. Let me give you a bit of an update and a rundown of the changes that have been proposed and really what prompted the meeting. So in the original contract that we brought before the court about a month ago, I believe it was in the meeting at the end of January, we had a contract that had a total price of $394,400 as a basic services fee, and then it had an exhibit which contained additional services, and those additional services were drafted with a maximum potential or maximum possible price of $27,500. So we were looking at, $425,000 contract approximately. That was approved, and then Mr. Fisher came back to me through email and asked if I would modify the contract to alter the pricing structure and alter the price amount. And I was uncomfortable having that contract signed without coming back to y'all. The new pricing, he's reduced the cost for the basic services to $351,241. So there's about a $43,000 reduction there. And then the additional services have gone up to $72,500 for an increase of about 50. So the numbers are similar as far as the total cost, but the structure is different. What's included in the additional services has increased, and what's included with the basic services has gone down. And then there's been some minor tweaking to the payment schedule as far as percentages assigned to each particular phase of the project and how much is due at each phase. And so I've asked them to come down and talk to y'all. The other issue that was raised in discussions between Commissioner Yower and myself after the authorization was trying to achieve a clarification on how much the county had already spent with Fisher Heck back in 2007 for construction documents for the courthouse. At that time, we paid approximately $350,000, I think, to Fisher Heck for work done in 2007, which included 90% construction documents. And there are discounts that are being offered to us. For this phase of the project, and credits that they've offered for the various phases. One of the questions that Commissioner Yower and I had when we discussed was whether the discounts that are offered in the schematic design and design development phases are appropriate because that work has been completed. The construction document phase does need revision because of the modifications in scope and the fact that 10% of the original work was never paid for. Obviously, the construction phase services need to be paid because that work has never been performed. But the modifications to the pricing and the questions that were asked prompted me to put this agenda item on the meeting and ask Fisher Heck to come down here and explain that to y'all so you can ask questions if you have any. The contract, although it has been authorized because of the changes that have been made to it, I am seeking a reauthorization, if you will, so that we can get those documents signed if they're approved. And I do have a final contract here with me that I believe Eric put in y'all's packets, which is fully negotiated between myself and Mr. Fisher. And if there's an approval with the pricing that's in there or modified pricing, we can make those changes and get that signed so we can get that work started. With that, I'm going to turn it over, unless y'all have any questions of me. Yes?
One thing, what was paid in 2007, according to the figures I have, is $314,000 and change.
Right.
Now that gave us only 90% of the planning phase. Is that what you said, or 90%?
Those payments brought us to 90% complete construction documents.
Right.
So that was the design work to near completion that was paid. The next step in the process would have been for Fisher Heck to finish the construction documents suitable for construction, for advertisement of bids and construction, which is 10% more refining of those documents and specifications, and then the construction phase, which was never paid, which was never done, which will be done as planned now. Anything else from me right now? Okay.
Thank you, and good morning to see all of y'all. What we've passed out is the first of 2 pages. This page shows how that I've arrived at the fee that we're proposing in the contract. At the top of the page, you'll see how I came up with the basis of the cost of construction. That is, I took the 2010 estimate of construction, which is the last that we did. I inflated that by 15%. Then I subtracted out the cost or proposed costs for phases 1, 1A, and 1B. And that's how I came up with a cost of construction for the remaining project. Then for a restoration project with the kind of coordination we have with the state on this project, I proposed a fee of 12%. then I show you how I'm breaking that down into the various phases. Schematic design and design development, those will be done in the next 6 months. The hope here, the promise here is that we will get those done by the end of summer. And then my contract also will call for me to prepare the grant application so that we can apply for funds from the Texas Historic Courthouse Preservation Program to receive a grant to help on the cost of the project. Then, if whatever the county decides to do after that point, when we know whether we have a grant or not, then we will carry through with the bidding and the construction phase, which will take an additional 15 to 18 months. And that would be the bidding and construction phases. The additional services is there's 0 for programming. We need to get a floor level survey done by a civil engineer. I've allowed $10,000 there. The Texas Historical Commission will have us go back and do an interior color survey so that the public spaces in the building will be actually restored. That's what we told them we're doing to the building. So they require that the public spaces, meaning the courtrooms and the hallways, need to be restored using original colors. Then there's a landscape irrigation design to hire a licensed irrigator to design a system that we can bid for the surrounding property. Interior design, no cost. Hiring an independent cost estimator to do a first-class estimate of cost before we, proceed with the final construction. So y'all will have a good idea of where you stand. And then to prepare the grant application and to prepare the completion report, which is a very laborious task. This is the completion report we prepared for the Phase 1 project alone, and it has to have color photographs of before, during, and after throughout the project, showing all of the things that got changed. So that's a cost that the state, is requiring that I do that if we get the grant. So that's in the price also. So we won't be coming back later. So these are fees that I can see covering the next 2.5 years as we complete this project. And so that's how I arrived at the cost. And the additional services will only be billed as they are done. So if we decide that we don't need the elaborate cost estimate from an independent contractor and you're going to go with my estimate, then we don't have to pay that amount. It's that kind of a thing. Or if the survey comes in at $7,500 rather than $10,000, you only pay the $7,500. So that's is there any questions about this that you have at this time? The second page is going to talk about the comparison of what we've been paid to what we've done next.
Yes, I have several. Okay, let's start with the floor level survey. We have a new concrete floor on the first floor, and it's there, it's going to be there.
Yes.
What's this floor survey going to tell us?
It's going to tell us how out of level the upper floors are.
Like
And if
it's over 5 inches from the north side to the south side of the courtroom floor. You're not going to change that.
Not in try to change the whole building. And this is something that my structural engineer wanted to determine. That's been on the job for a while. He wanted to see the results of what has happened in the last few years. So if y'all feel like you don't need that, I suppose we don't have to do that one either. But it would be I suppose what it's going to determine is if someone has an office and the floor is sloping 2 inches across there, do we want to do something to level the floor in that office so that the pencil doesn't roll off your desk? I mean, it's that kind of thing. We wouldn't be trying to level the whole building, but we would know what we needed to tell the contractor to do in that space.
Corporate on job, take a raise, but I'm gonna see what's there. $10,000 seems kind of high.
But the problem is, yeah, it may be less, but these are allowances. And I'm trying to cover myself as a businessman with costs. I don't want to come back here and say, well, it really, cost more, and now I need to come back and get reimbursed for that amount. So those are allowances for additional services.
Okay, don't we already have a interior color survey we paid $10,000 for?
No, that was just for exterior colors. That my project phase 1 was only for the exterior of the building. We didn't do any interior work in phase 1.
People went around inside the building. There was a man and a woman. King San Antonio, was that the same people who come home?
Yes, and I have the report, Commissioner, and they only gave me, we don't need it, but the report I remember only has 3 or 4 colors, and they're all about the corners.
Pete, we can't hear you since the mics aren't working.
Whatever, I'll look it up and see if I can find it.
Mr. Fisher, the cost for remaining work, you have a number of 5.8 million,
Yes.
Is that what your estimate is to complete the whole project?
I haven't done an estimate yet. I haven't been hired. So what I took was information the last time I worked with y'all, a few years ago in 2010.
That's just an estimate.
And that's a ballpark estimate. Something for me to get my hands wrapped around what the scope of work is on what's remaining.
Can that be the inside, interior as well as the exterior?
My contract does not include the foundation because that's already been done. It doesn't include the finishing of the roof because that's in a contract you've recently approved. But everything else in terms of interior, exterior is in this contract.
With the exception of the bell tower, or is that in here?
It will be in there, and I suppose it will be a alternate, whether we do it or not.
In our last meeting with THC, we were told in phase 2, we will have to complete it entirely. We can't elaborate any portion of it. The way I understood our meeting there, Judge Butler and I were there, and he said you have to complete it all with the bell tower. That was my understanding.
The whole enchilada. What I've added up with what the architectural firm has been paid and what they're proposing to be paid would take us to slightly over $800,000 through project completion. And
Are you counting in what you paid to Graham Loon?
no, I'm only counting in what we paid to your firm, sir.
I think that's incorrect.
Well, I have a paper from the auditor here that indicates the date of payments and checks. Well, we'll make a copy of it.
How much did we pay Green Wood?
Where did you say?
Grand total.
Oh, 380? I heard 800 and something.
Well,
I'm
that's
sorry.
the total if we include your current charges. I mean, here, if you take the figure at the bottom down here, sir, and add it to this figure that you're proposing, it comes up to slightly over $800,000 for the total project. That's using your proposed figure here of $429,000 and change.
It doesn't sound anywhere near correct to me, sir.
What's that?
What sounds correct is this next sheet. I'm sorry I didn't bring my final invoice that I had my secretary print out.
We have
You got the second sheet also?
That's what I was working on.
Well, okay, if you go to the middle of the first sheet, you see that my basic services that I'm proposing,
What's the first sheet?
the first sheet is the one that's not the chart. And in the middle it says basic services. Okay, what I'm proposing, let's go through them individually. For schematic design, the normal percentage for schematic design is 15%. So I'm taking 15% of the total construction, or the total cost, the total fee, and then I'm multiplying it by 25%. So I'm discounting the schematic phase by 75%. So over in the right-hand column, I'm discounting that phase by $78,000. In the design development, it's usually 20%. I'm also discounting it by 75%, which the discount's $104,000. In the construction documents phase, because of the work we've already done, and it's that set of drawings that's rolled up right there behind, see, David, you want to hold that up for everybody? I'm giving another discount of $115,000. So the discount that we're proposing is $298,900. What my secretary, my bookkeeper tells us we've paid is $303,600 for the 2007 documents.
We have 314,168.06.
Okay, we're close.
Mr. Fisher, would that include your traveling expenses and phone calls and stuff like that?
That's probably the difference between the two, is the reimbursable expenses between fees and reimbursable.
All I have is gross figures, so I don't know how they were broken out.
I was paid another $72,000 to do phase one, which included services of environmental consultants to review the asbestos abatement. That went through my contract, as well as structural engineering. And way back in 2000, we did the master plan, and that was $36,000. So if you add all that together, we're nowhere near what I thought you said was $800,000. But
that would include what you're proposing additional fees. That would take in what you have been paid already, plus what the $429,000 I believe you're proposing.
Yes.
That would be the total architectural cost for the project as per what's been paid, plus your figure here. That's where the $800,000 comes from.
I see.
I have a couple of comments.
Which is about 10% of the overall original cost of the project.
Sir, I understand.
One of them I'll ask Mr. Chapman there. Is the 12% the standard, is that about the standard fee on restoration, historical restoration? Did you check that out?
I tried to find information about that, and I didn't have any answers that made me comfortable saying what a standard fee was. The information I got from the people I talked to was that a project of this type is more complicated than what is considered a standard renovation or restoration, because the historical commission is involved and we're dealing with Yeah, more stringent set of requirements, and so you can expect to pay a little bit more than I think what people would normally expect to pay for architectural services. But I didn't get a standard percentage.
The grant application that the Texas Historical Commission uses allows up to 15% of the fee, 15% to be the fee for architectural and engineering services, and they limit it to that amount, and that's what they're willing to reimburse to the county. So if in regards to this, if you get the grant, the architectural services are also reimbursable up to the grant amount.
Well, with your estimate of the present cost, using the page you gave us here a few minutes ago of 9.2 million, percentage-wise, assuming there's not any add-ons to your proposed agreement, we would come in fairly well. We would come in at about 8% or something like that of the cost, maybe just slightly above 8% as far as architectural fees. So my concern with the $429,000 is that the whole thing? Are we still subject to come back for more, come back for more, come back for more? Judge Long, I think, expressed this the first meeting that I was at as a commissioner. The voters approved doing it, and we need to get it done. But at some point, personally, I believe we need to cap these costs and quit adding and adding and adding. But that's one person's opinion.
In terms of the way the contract is written, it's really not we haven't written it as a cost plus, have we?
No, the contract's a lump sum fee, so we're paying approximately $350 for basic services, and then allowances of up to $72.5 for additional services. Now you'll have reimbursable expenses, which is billed separately. So those costs, as we've seen from the last discussion, could be in the tens of thousands of dollars for the project. And then we have to anticipate the potential for delays and a request from the architect to compensate them for monthly additional services for construction administration, because the way the contract is written, we've got built into it 20 site visits during construction for a 30-month total project, which includes design. That's in the contract. So if we exceed those numbers, if we exceed the 20 visits, if we exceed 2 sets of reviews for shop drawings, essentially things that are tied to contractor performance, if we exceed expected allowances for that, the county can expect to see a request for additional compensation from the architect. At least that's my experience. I'll tell you that we'll do with the courthouse contract the same thing we did with the jail, is that if there are additional fees paid to the architect by the county because of contractor action or inaction, we'll have indemnification and reimbursement rights from the contractor for that. So the way the contracts are structured, it's intended to be a lump sum game where we have a total price for architectural and a total price for construction. And if those two worlds collide, then the money comes from somewhere to reimburse us. Likewise, if there is a design error that results in a change by the contractor, we would have the right to go back to the architect to recover those costs to correct the error. Of course, we're not going to anticipate any errors on any side of the project, but they happen. So,
Did y'all have something to say?
Yeah, I would just like to remind the court to bear in mind when you're talking about the overall cost, do keep in mind that we have paid Lam Lum a certain percentage on the construction of the foundation, which was a $2 million cost that wasn't included on the original plan. And the other thing is you have to consider that you're paying Lorraine Daly for the cost of the roof. And the roof is not included on this cost that you're looking at right now. So you have to add the foundation and the roof, plus those architectural fees, plus the fact we're also paying Lorraine Daly to be a liaison also in this process. So you have a certain degree of architectural fees that you might want to check with Luana of how much we've already spent to Mrs. Daly and Mr. Graham Lund to get an overall cost of what you've spent so far.
In my calculations, I estimated that what we've spent so far is $3,432,000. That's just my estimation. But in what we're talking about here today, I have tried to include that in this total cost that we mentioned of $9.2 million.
What do you think?
Well, we started on this project, the historical building couldn't be torn down, we have to go through with it. I've had questions from citizens about the cost. I got the paperwork from Luana on what we had spent, presented that to Mr. Chapman to discuss it with Mr. Fisher and come up with some adjusted figures. And I don't think we have a choice but to go ahead and get the grant and get the bid and get it done. We have to do it, just to keep the costs as low as possible. I was asked this morning if we could put a cap on it. Historical project, I don't think at this point we can put a cap on it. What we have here is the best we can do today. Hopefully we can, if the bid will come in lower than the figure, hopefully we can save a little bit. Hopefully we can structure the contract with the bid to, if there's something variable in there that we can get credit on, like we did on the last foundation phase. We got some credits on that. We wound up with money left over in that foundation for it, but we were able to remove all the asbestos, all the windows and everything. We were able to leave the fence around there, and so we had the fence. We didn't have to, their contract said take it down, so we left it, and it's there for the continuation of the project. There are several things that we did that we save some money or use some money that was left in that contract to do things that don't have to be added into this. We put electricity on all the floors for this next phase so that there's electric lights in that building right now. You don't have to put them in the next project. So hopefully we will do the same thing on this next phase and get it under this estimate that we have. That's all I can say. I don't know that we have a choice but to go ahead with this. We have Jeff. Let's talk with him and talk what he thinks is a fair deal.
Have any of y'all looked at another architect? Does anybody know if this price is reasonable or if it's expensive? Has anybody searched out another architect, or are we going to use Mr. Reynolds' analogy of maybe getting two bids, getting two different architects? I'm under the belief that Mr. Fisher isn't the only person or the only architect that works on historical restoration.
Scott, if we went to another architect at this point, I don't think he'd be allowed to use Mr. Fisher's documents.
We paid for him, he would be able to use them, we've already paid for them.
They're copyrighted, sir.
What did we pay for?
You paid for my architectural services. You didn't pay for
The document?
the intellectual property.
You didn't pay for the document?
No, you didn't.
Oh, good question.
I'm going to say that needs to be changed.
Yeah, somebody needs to, Jeff needs to check on that one.
That is long-standing. That's across the board. And what exactly happened on this project is that you did take the documents from me, that someone did. Someone gave them to Mr. Lund. Mr. Lund Xeroxed those pages of my drawings and put it in his set of drawings, both for the foundation and the roof project. And I have an ethics question for the Texas Board of Architectural Examiners against Mr. Lund, which has not been resolved as of yet.
I don't blame you for your situation, and I have no doubt that you're telling us the truth as far as the copywriting goes. I'm just saying, as and it may be a long-standing practice, but as an individual, I would not allow that to happen.
You have the usage of the documents. You can use my documents. You can have copies of them. You can do a lot of things with them. But you can't do what Mr. Lund did, which is have another architect use those for his own purposes. The county has use of those documents. Y'all are the people that bought them, not Mr. Lund.
And we cannot
You cannot
subordinate that utilization.
We really need to think about it now, because that's our courthouse and those are our documents, and you're drawing our courthouse, the county's courthouse. It's not your courthouse. You didn't design the courthouse.
It's my intellectual property
No.
that I went to, architecture school for 5 years, and I put in 40 years of my life in practicing this thing. Go to a doctor and then ask him if you can use the X-rays you brought over from the other doctor. But it's y'all's time to make your decision. And I think I've said all I need to say, but we appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Let me address the last question. The contract that we've negotiated says, with respect to copyrights and licenses, that the intellectual property of the architect is the architect's to use in the future. However, it says that the instruments of service, including but not limited to the documents, data, studies, surveys, drawings, specifications, field notes, maps, models, photographs, preliminary reports, and I can go on, but it includes basically everything that is work product given to the county by the architect for this project. It says all of which are produced by the architect and paid for by the owner are and will remain the property of the owner. So hopefully that answers your question. So when we pay for these plans, these specifications, and documents, the work product, that becomes our property based on a contract that I've negotiated with the county. The underlying intellectual property that is the creation of Fisher Heck Architects remains theirs to do with in the future. We don't have the right to take their intellectual property and give it to another architect, as he's alleged, to let that person then copy his work and build other projects using his work. But to the extent we use the plans that he's given us to do this work, if we have to hire a new architect to complete the project, we own the instruments of service. If we have to do work on the courthouse later on, using the plans and specifications for restoration activities, should there become some level of damage or otherwise, we own the instruments of service for this project. Whether our contract with the architect previously contains that language, I do not know. I've not seen it. I wasn't involved. That was well before I became involved with Karnes County. And I don't know what the rules are regarding the Board of Architecture's governance of ethical responsibilities between architects. That's between Mr. Loon and Fisher Heck. But with this project, the questions that are being raised, we've taken care of that in this contract. Any other questions for me?
One more?
Yes.
Okay. If, I'm not questioning what you're saying at all, but assuming all that's correct, then walk me through this, but if we chose to go with another architect or put this phase of it out for bid, what you're saying is based on the intellectual property laws, et cetera, if someone new came in, we would be literally starting at ground zero from planning. Is that not correct?
Without looking at the original contract language between Fisher Heck and the county, I would tell you that the standard AIA documents, if that's what was used, would result in just that. Unless you modify those documents to give the county ownership of those documents, then those documents stay the property of the design professional. And if we hired a new architect from this point forward, if we had a standard agreement in place originally, we'd be starting from zero with the new architect.
Quite frankly, if we try to reinvent the wheel, we're just pushing everything further and further behind, and that building's getting older by the day. we need to get this project done. I mean, it's lesson learned, I'm sorry, what it is, but that's a question for everybody. But we need this thing done, so I'll make a motion and we go ahead and approve this contract. Item on the agenda.
I'll second it.
Last comment, I'll try and make it the last comment, is just make sure that contract is airtight in terms of any additional cost, because I could vote against it and I think it would still pass. So I want to make sure that there is no wiggle room on the pricing, and that's it.
Any other comments from any of the commissioners? Did you say no more?
No more. I think Jeff has done the best he can. I've presented him information I could get him. I've tried to answer the questions of people that they've asked me. And I hope some of them have been answered today.
Got the motion on the floor.
Anything else from you, Jeff, that you think we need to know?
Now, I've heard the comments, and I'll make sure that this contract I'm very satisfied with, and I'll make sure the construction contracts going forward address the concerns that we've discussed already with respect to cost and reimbursement and indemnity.
This is a Pete question, and not a put you on the spot, but we're hung with the legislature depending on what they do as far as funding for these historical courthouses as far as the next grant. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we really are not going to, until next budget year, until after, what is it, October 1st, when the state changes over, we don't have an opportunity to do much till then, do we?
Right. They will probably get their budget out in June.
Okay.
And in the application, we'll know how much is in there for historical preservation. And at that time, we can make a decision, do we apply for a grant, do we fire Mr. Fisher and say don't do any more, or whether we're going to go ahead.
But then the historical commission make a point that we have to, this next time has to be a total restoration.
It has to be complete.
This is the whole thing.
I think you got your motion, your second, you made your comments. I think it's time to vote.
Well,
Any,
camera out, man.
I'm not going to, unless everybody's through talking on the court. Everybody got said everything they want to say. Apparently so. So, the vote is on exactly what now?
On item number 14, to go ahead and, as presented on the structure of the contract with Fisher Heck, and then the renovation project for the courthouse phase 2. It's presented by Mr. Chapman.
Jeff, that's what you satisfied with?
Yes, Judge.
To do at this point?
Yes.
Just for the adjustment of the pricing on this, right?
Right. It's the approval of the contract
Yes.
with the adjusted pricing.
Exactly.
I'll make one more comment. I was just handed this morning, which is the contract that Mr. Fisher has negotiated with Jeff Chapman. And I haven't had time to read every word and hit there a whole lot of standard stuff, but as he pointed out, he made a few changes in there. And, he's a specialist on this, and so I have to accept that.
Any comments from court members? All right, let's call for a vote. All in favor of the motion before the court, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign.
I'm going to abstain, Judge. I have I'm not going to vote against it, but I'm not completely comfortable with it, so just mark me in abstain.
You have the power to vote any way you want to.
Thank you, sir.
Motion carries, 4 votes for, no votes against, and 1
Abstention.
abstention, I guess, would be what we do. That being so, motion carried as I said, 4-0. So, Jeff, I guess, is there anything else? that-
Next item. That's what I got.
All right. Is the next, that's yours?
Yes, you're up, Judge.
Okay. I'm still at 13 or 12 or somewhere down the way. 14 or 15? 15,
sir.
Okay, which is discuss review action on status of Karnes County Jail project, possible action on payment to HMC authored by Jeff Chapman.
All right, so this is on the agenda because we have a pay application pending for HMC. That was discussed and submitted to the county, approved by the architect. I put this on here because there was a possibility that I was going to come down here and tell y'all not to pay that because the contractor was late and had not been paying its subs. I think there's been a lot of discussion previously about those items, so I'm here to give you an update on the project and tell you where we are with the contractor, and also tell you that you can go ahead and pay that because we're back in shape. The contractor has been put on notice by my firm that they're in default of their contract for 2 breaches of contract or potential breaches of contract. One is the non-payment of their subs and suppliers when they've previously sworn to us that they've made those payments. And the second is failing to make adequate progress towards completion. With respect to the payment issues, the county has received a number of bond claims or bond perfection notices from various parties. The total amount that was claimed it varies based on month because some payments were being made, but we were looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid bills. The biggest ones were for plumbing and concrete. And there was clearly a capitalization problem with the project, with the contractor. We raised those issues in meetings and discussions and phone calls with Kendall Finney, who's the owner of HMC. He promised to give it attention. Since those meetings first and those discussions first started about 6 weeks ago, maybe, give or take a few days, Mr. Finney and his partner, a guy named Phil Packer, recapitalized the company. They've told me they put $5 million back into the company. They explained to me that certain people and an individual in particular who had left the company recently was in charge of their job cost accounting and had not done a very good job tracking costs, and therefore monies that were devoted to one job were being sent elsewhere, and it became a significant problem. That's the reason they put a bunch of money back into the company. As about 2 weeks ago, Kendall Finney sent me a series of lien releases from subcontractors who had given us notice they weren't paid, and sent me copies of checks that he had cut and sent to these contractors. It now appears, both from the documentation that I have, which is signed by the actual claimants, the subcontractors and suppliers, and the lien releases and checks that I've seen from HMC, that the unpaid bills have been paid. The evidence of that is also in the fact that people are now back at the job site performing their work. As you might know, you probably know, the job progress slowed to a near halt, near stoppage in the past month because various subs had not been paid and they were refusing to come back out. They've now been paid. We're now seeing an increased level of activity. So it appears from the paperwork and from the progress on the job that the breach for non-payment has in fact been cured and that HMC is no longer in default on this project. Now, we will continue to keep a close eye on it because of the history that we've had recently with them and the problems. We want to make sure that the problems that they have had don't continue. With respect to the performance obligation, they had promised us a completion schedule for months and then failed to deliver it. When we met with them in January, the last schedule we had seen was from November. They're supposed to give us schedules every month for their pay application. And they've been telling us as of November and all the way into January that they're going to be done in March. And I came here before y'all, we talked about that. We said that was optimistic. One of the things we demanded from them with respect to curing their breach for failing to make adequate progress was get people on the job, get them working, and tell us realistically when we can expect to have this job done with an accurate schedule so that we as the owner can track your progress. A completion date estimate by itself doesn't do us any good. We need to see a schedule that has details for the trades that are going to be out there, when they're supposed to be working, what they're going to be doing. I told Kendall and his project manager, Donnie Kramer, this week that if he didn't get us that promised schedule by today, that I would withhold the payment because they would still have an outstanding breach they had not cured. As of 6 this morning, I got the schedule. It shows, and I will distribute it to everybody here, but I didn't have time to print it out because I was en route. But it shows a completion date of April 30th. So they're giving themselves basically 2 months to get the job done from today. They believe that's accurate. We now have a schedule with tasks listed that we can go out and verify work is being done. In my discussions with Lorraine Daly, work has picked up and increased dramatically in the last week since the payments have been made to the subs. It doesn't appear that there will be a significant delay with respect to materials to be ordered because there are materials stored on site or off site that have been ordered for incorporation into the job. It's just a matter of getting the guys out there to install them. And that appears that's happening now. So that's kind of the good news report. We definitely had a problem. It appears that we've gotten over the hurdle on that problem and we're moving towards completion. It is going to be late. We do have LDs and we do have an agreement from the contractor to pay those LDs and pay the additional services that we're being charged by Lorraine Daly's firm to get this thing finished. At the end of the job, we will present a closeout negotiation and final pay accounting to HMC that covers all those costs, and we're going to add my costs for this work in there as well to try to get them to give us a credit sufficient to fully reimburse the county for all the costs that are incurred by their breach. We have contractual and statutory rights to do that, so that's kind of where we are as far as the update. At this point, I don't believe you need to take any action on my agenda items. I believe in the Treasurer's report and payment of bills items that are 17 and 18, you'll receive the exact dollar amount and request approval for paying the bill, which is the last pay application from HMC. And that's the extent of my update right now in my report. I'm happy to answer questions.
Is Mrs. Daly scheduled to come on a regular basis to make sure that they're meeting this structured schedule that they've sent you?
She is. That's part of her normal monthly services for which we're paying her. I know she's down there at the job site today. So, yes, she is. And she knows that given their performance history recently, that we want her to keep a very keen eye on them to make sure they stick with that schedule. And if there's a deviation, we need to know about that immediately so we can take any necessary action.
Are you satisfied, Jeff, that she understands that we're concerned about this?
Completely satisfied. Yes, she absolutely understands that, and I'm very pleased, really, with the work that HMC has done to get themselves back performing here. Obviously, I'm disappointed they're late, but we were at a point in this project where it very easily could have been an abandonment of the project and a complete disaster, and they've done a lot to bring this thing back to performance. So.
Okay, I'll make a few comments on the state before. HMC is a large company. They have jobs all over the United States. And they don't want to lose their bonding capacity. Going as far as they had into it, I felt sure that they would, and they did. Now, when Jeff and Lorraine and I walked the project, the day after we had the meeting with Kendall Finney here in his office, put them on notice that they had to get things done. We walked down there and we all three came up with about the same time. Maybe by May 1st it'd be finished. That's what they're giving us now. So that's what we thought, well, it could be done, but it wouldn't be before me. So hopefully they will meet this schedule. They do have people on the jobs. There's a lot more activity there this week. I'll verify that. And hopefully it gets on schedule and gets moved. I was told by Rick, the guy that's on the job, he's not the job superintendent, he's just a subordinate on there. He works for Hale Mill. He did tell me that Donnie Kramer, who is the project manager from the office, was going to be spending 2 to 3 days a week down here on the job. So he is going to be coming here and see if it's going, see if the schedule is implemented as they proposed.
When is he going to start?
He's starting that now. He emailed, in his email to me yesterday, he made that commitment, that starting now, he'd be on the job 2 to 3 days a week, probably 3 days a week, to make sure it gets done.
I believe he was here yesterday, which I wasn't here. I didn't see him, but he probably was there yesterday, he's probably there today.
How are we gonna know when he's there and he's not?
I'll be checking every day that I'm here, baby, checking.
Well, come tell me if you're gonna be gone someday and not gonna check, because I'll go check. Make sure we're up to date. I just want to see what you're supposed to do.
Do you think it'd be better, Judge, if he lets us know whenever he's gonna be here?
Well, it would be better, I don't know
Is
that
that possible that he gets word that
I can ask him.
if it's only gonna be like 3 days out of the week, he needs to let us know when he's gonna be here so we can be out, one of us can be out there with him.
I'll ask him to let us
Rather
know.
than us trying to hunt out the days to try to find him, there's no reason for that. He should, as project manager, right?
Right.
He should have the responsibility to let us know since it's only gonna be 3 days when he's gonna be here and when he's not.
Okay.
That way you don't gotta be hunting down or something.
Any other comments? Board members, questions? Jeff, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you, why hasn't Lorraine Daly been reporting to us about these problems? I mean, we
Thank you,
attend
sir.
these meetings and this is the first we've been hearing about the vendors not being paid and the project being, we'd heard that it was kind of a month behind and that it was running a little delinquent, but there hasn't been any reports by her as to what the problem has been with the company not paying its vendors and people not showing up to work. I just wondered why Lorraine Daly hasn't been sharing that with the county.
I have no idea.
And something else, you're about to enter another agreement with her on the EMS building. So, like Shelby used the comment, I think what we learned from it, so we're just gonna go on. You're about to step right back in it, Shelby. Probably ought to wake up and pay attention.
That is a good point, man. I'll ask her. Thank you.
Okay, we've been talking about this problem with you guys for the last month and a half.
But I think she's saying that Lorraine actually made like
But
in public.
we've been talking about going to bond on this, to going to the bonding company for at least 45 days.
Yes.
Because we had these problems, and we talked to Pete, Shelby, the judge.
Yeah, then one of the commissioners made me aware of it, but I think her point is more like it being out in the public and not just within the court. I think
You
that's
hear Lorraine come up here and tell you how much money she's saving you in order to get the EMS job.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, because I was aware of this a few weeks ago. One of the commissioners made me aware of this.
Well, we were too, but y'all just didn't say it. We knew about it.
I know what you mean.
Right.
I know what you're trying to say. It
But
actually
it's
come
kind
out
of being
public.
hid, kind of being, Right.
We weren't trying to hide anything.
Well, Lorraine is in her, Lorraine is, to get the next job. It's Patty, the captain of Reeves County.
We're not gonna get into a round table discussion on this matter. That's not why we're here. Is there anything else
Thank you, Jeff.
considered item 15 only, that's where we were, I believe. Well, we are now, but we'll make sure we approve it 15. Okay. Item 16, approval of assignment of real property portion of the select energy services property tax abatement agreement authored by Alan Espinosa. There's nobody here, my understanding is, from Select Energy Services. Is Alan Espinosa here? We're not going to consider this item. Item 17, discuss act on county treasurer's report. I'm not, we don't have it yet.
I put this on there Monday in hopes that Tyler Technology would have all the journal entries corrected or done in order to have a corrected report. Friday, we had a phone conference with Donna and Tamara. Donna is the implementation manager with some concerns that we had on how we could get the system to where we want it to be. They've come up with an idea of a solution that we're not happy with, but for right now, we're going to have to deal with it. They're making the journal entries from December and January and half of February to bring the general ledger balance to where it is correct. And they're going to form templates to where we would, whenever we do a payroll or accounts payable, then we would go to the templates and pick what fund and the dollar amount, and then it will take it out of the cash balance. In the past, it did that automatically for accounts payable, and we asked that it would do that for payroll. Well, with the new system, because we're not pool cash, and Luana will jump in here when I'm not speaking right, they say they can't do that. And our argument was, well, why did you change something from the old system to the new system? It's like we're going backwards. We're doing 2 or 3 more steps than what we had to do in the past. So I emailed Tamara on Wednesday with some questions that I had, because she emailed the journal entries to us, on the proposed ones, to make sure everything was correct. And I had some questions on it Wednesday, and I just had Elaine check my emails here about 30 minutes ago. She still hasn't answered me. And I believe Michelle had some problems with some of the accounts payable not showing up also on that list that she was bringing us, so.
Or having some show up that weren't on our payable cycle.
Okay. So we're still working with Tyler on that. But I did have some other things that I want to talk about a little bit. Chief Ibram and I pulled him into the hallway earlier about Time Clock Plus, and I think he talked to Shelby with it. We really have to have timesheets correct before we can upload them into the new software program through Tyler. And he had suggested, and I think Shelby did too, having possibly a meeting with all the department heads on exactly what we want from them before they send timesheets to us. So that'll probably be in the works next week. I have hired a new girl. Her name is Sylvia Friesenhahn. She started last week Tuesday. I think most of y'all have already met her.
Thank you, ma'am.
We are having issues with Tyler. We feel like we were misrepresented when we were discussing with him the transition, because our understanding, and that's myself, Michelle, Gina, Vi, and Julie at the time, was that we would no longer have to do fund transfers. Those were totally built into the system. Now they aren't built into the system. They have made this temporary fix of journal entries to do that, but we are still in very strong negotiations with them to reprogram what they represented would be programmed.
What do we need to do that we haven't done it? Fire?
We can't fire them because they're the programmers of their product. I think it's just going to be a matter of us continuing to state our dissatisfaction. We are not only dealing with the trainers, we are dealing with the project manager, supervisor, the salesperson, and a tech, IT tech from their company that is our contact. And it was our contract with our former software also, so he knows what our former software did. And again, like Vi said, they are creating us more work, which when you improve software, you're supposed to have less work. So we are in, as I said when we had our status call this week, our project manager asked if we needed to have one, and I said, if you're ready to hear a lot of complaining and moaning and groaning, and he said, well, bring it on. So Vi, Michelle, and I sat in on a conference call with him and expressed our dissatisfaction and our problems, or some of our problems, and he brought in his boss, Donna Powell, who was already in the loop trying to create these journal entries to correct to date what has been done.
It just seems like we're having to do more work with the new system than the old system. It's just like one step now takes 3 steps, and it's just not what we were told. I mean, they even came in, did a little presentation with all of us, and we were all, yeah, this is good, but even when we had the on-site training, that last step of having to do journal entries was never mentioned to us or to Luana's office, so it's...
I just heard you say that y'all made bad decisions.
I'm sorry, for read what?
I'm hearing you say that y'all made bad decisions in choosing this company or whomever.
I don't think it's bad decisions. I think there's some misrepresentations or some miscommunications. We're working through it.
Well, what have we done to get through it?
Well, like I said, we've had the conference call with our project manager. His supervisor's become involved. A programmer has become involved to try and line item out all these entries that need to be made to get the balances as far as cash corrected, where the actual expenditures are showing out of the cash fund. Right now what they're doing is they're setting in a clearing account, a payroll clearing account or an APCA clearing account. It shows on the expenditure side that we've made all these payments, but the monies just haven't moved from one account to the other within the system.
The old way, it did it automatically.
On the payable side, but not on payroll.
I understand that the way we did it automatically, and the way we're doing it now, it apparently doesn't. We didn't know that when we started using it.
Because when we were going through the transition phase or even the contract phase to upgrade to this product, our understanding from them was we would no longer have to do it. They say that's not what they implied, but neither here nor there. And then during the brief amount of on-site training that accounts payable had, which is my office, the step to make that transfer was never mentioned, and Michelle actually taped the training so that we have proof that we were never told that had to be done.
And she sat down with Glenn Newcomb, who was the implementation person, and specifically said, this is what happens with accounts payable now, this is what we want to have with payroll, so we don't have to make those checks and post those checks. And he said, oh, we can do that, there's no problem. If it does it now, it'll continue to do it, and we can make payroll do the same thing. And it wasn't until I was trying to balance bank statements that there was a $2 million difference between what we had in the bank and the system. And I went back and added up the accounts payable and the payroll for December, and it almost matched to the T, made it balance. And that's when I went to Luana and I said, okay, am I not reading this right? This is what I'm seeing. And she's like, no, it's not taken out where it's supposed to be. So that's how we got the ball rolling when we realized a step was being missed.
Have we asked other counties that use Tyler if they've had the same problem?
Last April when we had our treasurer's conference, yes, I did. Last April when we had our treasurer's conference, we have like a, depending on auditor or no auditor, what your group size is. In Pecos County, that we're getting ready to convert to Encode 10. Who has it? Oh, we love it. They're great. They're wonderful. We have no issues. You know, the implementation was a little bit bumpy. They loved it.
The ones that I've talked to that utilize Encode have utilized 8 and 9, and all those, they are satisfied with that. 10 is their latest upgrade in their program, and there are some bumps, but it's going to be like anything. You're going to have bumps. There's things that have to be worked out, and we have now scheduled 2 days of remote training for the auditor's office March 18th and 20th, and then we also have received, since our conversations this week with Tyler, some instructor-led training. It's online training. They give you different scenarios. You work through them. There is an instructor available at that point in time to ask questions, to explain, to walk you through, and we're hoping that that will help us as far as utilizing the system. But our big deal right now is getting them to fix the programming where it does what they told us it was going to do.
But you haven't gotten there yet.
Not totally, no sir.
So basically, it could be just a programming issue.
Correct.
Any other questions, comments? Payment of bills.
There's some changes in some prescriptions, so I printed
Okay, I want y'all to turn to page 11, and starting there, I'm going to point out some major payments. On page 11, under the second heading of account summary, you will see a payment for septic tank permit fees. That is what we pay to Greg Liska when he inspects all the septic systems that are permitted and implemented in the county, and that is for 87 fees, 87 septic systems. When he issued this invoice, it dates back to, I believe it was July of 2013. And we have sent him a letter to do invoices monthly so that we are incurring these in the same time that we actually receive the fees and that the correct remittances are made to the state. Further down on that same page is a payment for special counsel fees, $14,733.04. The substance of those payments are on page 1. In the bottom section, they're identified as Karnes County /Shaw, Attorney Services /Malone, and Attorney Services Courthouse grants and easements. That total expenditure was $14,733.04. At the bottom of page 11 is an identified several payments identified for juvenile detention services in the amount of $14,196.41. The detail of those expenditures are on page 3.
Interrupt just a second, please. What, how many juveniles do we have incarcerated? I marked that on my other one that I noticed.
I don't have the detail of the invoices in front of me, but we have several. You're welcome to come look at the invoices.
I just was curious because it looked like, I glanced at the individual ones in the breakout and there was several.
Yes. If you go on to page...
What you're saying.
These are the fees that the county pays to other counties to hold our juveniles, that we have no juvenile facility here, and this is the same as we pay GEO or pay whatever except for juveniles. There are several counties, and I don't remember which ones have juvenile facilities that apparently we farm around.
Yes, because we do not have an on-site, and different incarceration options are there depending on the alleged infraction.
Don't put the good ones with the bad ones.
Or the mediocre ones with the bad ones. Okay, on page 12, almost a third of the way down, there's a payment for $5,549.39. The description indicates handrails west end. That is erroneous. It's for the annex heating and air conditioning study. I did make that correction on the actual copy of the bills to be filed. That again was a conversion issue with our software. I will get that corrected today. The next entry is for $127,115.60. That's for the communications tower at the new jail facility.
The next payment is for $8,151. That's for different fees on the courthouse restoration. The next payment is for $95,426.45 on the jail facility. That includes $71,793.40 to Hale Mills, $17,790.05 to Daily Spears, $530 to Rock Engineering, and $5,313 to Chapman Law Firm. As Mr. Chapman alluded to earlier, we will recover those costs from Hale Mills for Lorraine's fees as well as the Chapman Law Firm. Further down on the same page, prisoner detention, $7,707. This is for adult inmates through the Sheriff's Department that are incarcerated places other than our jail and GEO. A little bit further down is a payment of $5,002.50, and the description is vehicles. That is for equipment in the code compliance deputy vehicle. The next entry of $3,914.96 is described as replacement weapons. That includes tasers, taser cartridges, and bulletproof vests. On page 13, there is a payment of $19,397.50. Those are for different maintenance costs for software within the county. The bulk of that payment is to Hill Country Software, $12,320 for the Sheriff's Department, County Attorney, and County Clerk. Included in there also is our phone maintenance contracts of $770. The largest item on this page, $1,030,006.37. That is road materials. Out of this, as previously approved by court, includes the following equipment. 4 new pickups for road and bridge, totaling $100,381, and a skid steer for $68,957. So the actual amount of road materials paid in this cycle is $860,668.37.
Question 1. The pickups and the skid steer, I guess, came from the buy board?
The pickups did. Mike was a skid steer on it. Yes.
Okay. When do we need to think about advertising for materials? It is ridiculous. It is not only ridiculous, it is illegal for us to be buying this much stuff without a bid process of some sort. I don't care how many suppliers there are. And I think there are more than we're being told.
Actually, the ideal time would probably be August or September when we have our budget ready, and then we would know how many.
Put a gold star on your calendar.
Okay.
860,000, how much?
$860,668.37.
Majority of that cost is transportation.
I know, but I also know that there's a pit in Pettus that is approved by TxDOT for everything except construction of interstates. Pettus is 20 miles, that's 70 miles. So
I have 5 trucks.
One way.
That's right. 5 trucks work a hell of a lot better out of Pettus than they do out of East Braunfels.
I run 80 trucks out of Braunfels. I run 5 trucks in the county.
Okay. They may or may not. We'll work on that. You put it in the bid, and if the contractor, the material contractor can handle it as the way it's written, he'll do it. But there will not be another year if I'm on the court that this amount of money is spent not bidding.
Further down on the same page is a $2,500 fee, and the description is Senate Bill 1747. That is our lobbyist fee that we pay in conjunction with DeWitt County and Gonzales County for Mr. Holzhauser's service with the legislature.
Let me mention something while we're there. There is a bill before the legislature, and I'm not so sure I don't agree with it, to prevent governmental entities from employing lobbyists. For what it's worth.
That will be extremely hard on the local governments because more and more mandates that are unfunded will be passed down.
I understand, and what'll happen is commissioners and our other elected officials are gonna have to fill that gap. But anyway, I just mentioned it, I read it off of the PAC website or something, so FYI.
The last several items on this page are rural fire expenditures. We pay quarterly payments to each volunteer fire department, Runge, Gillette, Kennedy, Karnes City, and Fall City, and those are $5,000 per quarter. Then we also pay them for the number of fires that they attend.
Are these outside the city limits?
Yes, at the rate of $6,000 per fire. And then also in this cycle is the amount we pay the rural fire district in lieu of taxes. Instead of actually paying property taxes, we just pay it direct to the entity. The total for this bill cycle is $1,753,292.72.
I move we pay the
I
bill.
got a question.
I'll second it.
Hold it, I got my question.
Okay.
You talking about attorney services here?
Yes, sir.
What with Karnes County / Shaw
Yeah.
for 666, that's kind of scared me.
Mr. Hancock, would you like to reply to that? It involves Casey Cullen out of Victoria. You authorized this.
It has to do with public information requests in the Shaw. When we started the county clerk's office,
So it's public information request?
yes, that's basically what it is.
How about the bigger one, the loan request?
That is the fees ongoing in the case that Mr. Hancock has filed in civil district court.
Well, I still move we pay the bills.
Second.
I still second it.
You second?
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
I just asked that the bills be signed before we adjourn.
Initial,
Copy.
the ones that stamped at the top, we have to initial bill.
Each commissioner initials there and then you sign on the final page.
Any other comment, question? We're gonna do that after we adjourn, or not?
She asked that we do it now.
But yeah,
We're all set
before.
here.
Once you vote.
Just because last meeting I had a couple of commissioners leave.
She had to chase me down.
But we need a vote.
Vote. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. All voted for.
You're in the back. We'll all initial and you'll sign that.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Let's go.
You'll sign the last page.
Stay warm out there, Earl. I'm gonna beat your key.
We don't want to do that. Back tomorrow.
No, we haven't. Yes. What are you gonna do about that?